listening right now, my wife Talia and I were devastated when we heard of the sudden passing of a dear friend for over 20 years, Dr. Mark Ludman, Zichrono Levracha, or in his Hebrew name, Mordechai David ben Shlomo Aharon Beshoshana, Zichrono Levracha. He was taken from us with a divine kiss, unannounced, on Thursday night, and I admit that for the last 3 days I've been not only going through beautiful memories, but literally being very unbalanced, because I felt that I'm going back to the basics of my career in the rabbinate, and the basics of life in general. And I'd like to explain what I mean. Every morning, Jews get up, and at the very basis of their prayers, they say the words, לעולם יהא אדם ירא שמיים, בסתר ובגלוי. Always, you should be a mensch, a God-fearing Jew, both in secret, when no one's looking at you, as well as in public. There is no better sentence that I could think of in order to describe who Mark was. First and foremost, לעולם יהא אדם. He was an ultra mensch. He had a smile. He was pleasant. He had an amazing laugh that I tried to imitate a few times before this recording but couldn't do it, because he genuinely laughed at your jokes. He genuinely listened to you. Not listening and looking at your phone, not listening and having your mind elsewhere, but actively listening to what you had to say. During my years as the rabbi in the Beth Israel Synagogue of Halifax, Dr. Mark Ludman was the head of genetics at one of the local hospitals. He already made Aliyah, and therefore he was commuting. We had the pleasure of hosting him at many Friday night and Shabbos lunch tables at our house. And as he was an ultra mensch, we thought Israeli, he thought Canadian. So we thought if we tell him, listen, Mark, any Shabbos you're here, you're invited to our house. You don't need an invitation. We're setting a place for you. You come. Do not eat whatever you think you're going to make in your apartment. You're coming to our house for a proper Shabbos meal. But that didn't help, because he was an ultra mensch. So every Friday I had to put it in my calendar to call Mark and say, Mark, you're coming over tonight. You're coming over tomorrow. And sometimes there were many guests at the table, as is the legacy of any rabbi's table. And sometimes it was just Mark and us. I can tell you that the most enjoyable meals was to sit there and just to talk to Mark and to consult. And he was always there with sage advice, listening very quietly, telling you what he thinks, giving you background on people in the community, and most importantly, showing you how you can be a mensch and at the highest level. Number 2, and this cannot be belittled, Yirei Shamayim. He was a God-fearing Jew. In order to explain what that means, I want you to understand he got to observance on his own together with his wife, Batya. May she live many more years in health and happiness. And they did so in a place where, I admit, this was not the local fashion. There were not many like them in Halifax. But they did it against all odds. They were determined, and they succeeded. And not only did they decide to become God-fearing Jews, but to do so in the eternal land and do the unthinkable, make Aliyah and become part of the land of Israel. I admit that it would have been amazing for me to have a person like Mark full-time in Halifax. But I was the proudest Jew alive that one of my congregants was a commuter to Israel, paying taxes in Israel, having his family in Israel, and yes, giving of his knowledge in genetics and beyond to the local community. You would think that after becoming a God-fearing Jew and moving to Israel, Mark Ludman would have become part of Israel and thus sort of cut off connections with his past. I can promise you, behein tzitki, that nothing of his menschlichkeit went down when he became a God-fearing Jew. And nothing of his God-fearing Jew went down because he was a mensch. He was as loved by his colleagues and peers, by his friends, by his many family members in Halifax, before he wore a kippah and after he wore a kippah, because he absolutely understood that you could not be a mensch without being a God-fearing Jew, and vice versa. This is only something that can come from someone who understands deeply and profoundly people as well as Judaism, is as sensitive to the Torah as he is to people. And finally, בסתר ובגלוי. He was a mensch, a God-fearing mensch, both in private and in public. I can promise you that in the privacy of his own home, he was the same person as he was in public. We had him as the only guest. It was the same Mark you would see publicly. That smile, that contagious smile, that wonderful laugh, that active listening, and most importantly, genuinely being happy with other people's happinesses and genuinely hurting when other people hurt. He was one of the first that always posted a like in any of our simchas that we posted on the internet, at any of our life cycle events. And we're not talking about that we were in touch every day. We're talking about being in touch from time to time. But he saw something. He said, the Grunstein family has a simcha. I'm putting a like on it. I'm going out of my way to do so. And I'm sure he acted that way with many. But the most important and amazing achievement of his life was his aliyah to Israel after doing everything I just said. So he was an Adam, a mensch. He was a Yirei Shamayim, a God-fearing Jew, and besetr uvagului, both in private and in public. And you would think that he would move to Israel, and it'd be hard for him. He didn't know a proper Hebrew. He was trained outside of Israel. And yet, it's amazing. He amalgamated into Israel like any Israeli. He became part of the community of Ra'anana, specifically of the community of Shifteh, and would enjoy telling you what they're up to, being as part and parcel of it like any Israeli that was born here. And I think it's very fitting that the last parsha that Mark Ludman heard in Shul was Parshat Devarim. Begins a long speech of Moshe towards his death, in which the verse says that Moshe Rabbeinu went ahead on the eastern bank of the Jordan. They're about to cross into the west. Ho'il Moshe be'eret HaTorah hazot limor. He started to explain and make the Torah coherent. Says Rashi on that beautiful verse, B'shivim lashon pirsha lahem. He explained it to them in 70 languages. My great Rebbe Rav Amital asked, why do you need 70 languages? Whatever language Moshe Rabbeinu spoke to the Jews, they understood. So why did he need 70 languages? Said my Rebbe, because ultimately Rashi is teaching us that the 70 languages symbolize the 70 different cultures that we have in the world. And that the Torah can fit in to each and every culture. In the words of the Baal Chidushei Harim, one of the great Gera Rebbes, on the pasuk at the end of Sefer Devarim, Binu Shnot Dover Dor, learn each generation properly. That in each generation there's a new way to understand the Torah, and you need proper people to come ahead and to coherently explain it and make it tangible and, most importantly, applicable to the new reality. Mark Ludman did that. He took the basis of what he learned in Halifax. He brought it to Israel and amalgamated totally into the new culture. You could see by his posts on Facebook, you could see by the various things that he published. He became totally and utterly an Israeli like any Israeli. Forget about the Hebrew, forget about living in Ra'anana where there's many English speakers. He was as disturbed like any Israeli about the terrible situation that we've been going through almost for 2 years. And at the same time, never cutting off relationships with the people that loved him back where he came from. There was once in the summer that he was able to bring the family to Halifax. And finally, after many times that, thank God, we had the privilege of having him over, They invited us over for a meal. Now, I have to admit, this was not something very common that happened to us, and it was indeed a sensation. We go to his apartment, very small apartment, very, very not furnished, and his wife Batya said something that, in my opinion, absolutely will explain this Rashi I just quoted. She said, you see, you could sit in a folding table with folding chairs and you could still make Shabbos. Quote, end quote. You can amalgamate the Torah into each and every reality. If not, the Torah, God forbid, will become irrelevant. And Mark, together with Batya, made it relevant in Halifax and then in Israel. I recall the wedding of Shana. When Shana got married to an Israeli, and this was a typical Israeli wedding in every which way, shape, and form, a Jewish wedding in Israel. And as we were dancing together, I said, Mark, 30 years ago in Halifax, would you ever imagine you'd get here? And you said, not in my wildest dreams. And I'm going to humbly disagree. Someone that was able to take the Torah and make it relevant in a new reality, to get a new job, to live in a new place, can absolutely have the privilege of having his daughter Shana get married to a total Israeli and have a total Jewish wedding like any other Israeli. Only a person as pleasant as you, as God-fearing as you, as someone that can break the Torah relevant in each reality would be able to pull it off. I can't begin to tell you the pain that we feel that he's no longer with us. We're still in shock, and I think we're going to continue to be in shock. But if there's anything that we could do on this earth in his memory, I believe that each and every morning, when we say those words, let's mean it. And let's do it. Le'ilui nishmato. First of all, be a mensch. Listen to people, smile at people, make them feel that they're important. Number 2, be a God-fearing Jew. And number 3, never should there be a difference between your public persona and your private persona. And if we do that in his memory, then I believe the Torah will not only be relevant in each reality, it will prevail. Mordechai David, Ben Shlomo Aharon Veshoshana Zichrona Levracha, we're going to miss you terribly. We're going to miss your laugh. We're going to miss your smile. We're going to miss your very presence. But I am absolutely sure that together with the love of your life, Batya, and your wonderful children, Benjamin, Aaron, and Shana, your legacy will continue to be active on this earth as much as it was during your life. And as you go up to the Olamot Elyonim, we make a pledge to you that we will continue your legacy of La'olam Yehei Adam Yirei Shamayim Basseter Uvagalui. Let us always be a mensch, a God-fearing mensch, in secret as well as in public. Yehei Nishmatcha Tzrura B'Tzra L'Chaim.